people in.
Correct. And they're pouring in.
Nice.
We have 42 attendees thus far.
Okay. What do you want to give about 5 after? Give to that.
Hey, Darcel. Hey, Autumn. Welcome. Glad you're here. All right, Cypress, Texas. It's good to see, or I guess good to have you in the room, Lisa. Oh, we're glad you're here, Lisa. It's a little different this time because we're doing it virtual, but this is, I'm glad this is your first time, and you'll get a lot out of this morning. Oh, Bob from Tulsa, Oklahoma, but let's see, work and live in Texas. Very nice. Good morning, Andrea. And then I read precision transitional medicine, and at first my head was like, precision, that's a unique first name. Cool, we got lots of representation. Wow, and I see we have representation from all over the states. We've got East Texas, Houston, San Antonio. I believe I saw an Abilene in there, Beaumont, Orange. My family's originally from Orange. Bernie. Yeah, we've got great representation this morning. We got the Panhandle up in Lubbock. Nice. I saw a couple San Antonios. Kerrville, very nice. Panelists, we're up to 63 attendees thus far. RGV, all right. Glad you're here. Hi, Claudette.
It's Humphrey.
Jason, I'll kick us off in about 2 minutes.
Sounds good. Yes, Claudette. Yeah, we caught that and tried to get the email or the link circulated to folks, and then it was on the website too. So yeah, I'm glad that people are finding us finding us this morning. All right, and more people. I see Edinburgh, more from the Valley. We're at Canyon Lake area, Austin, Dallas. I've seen a lot of Houstons, quite a few East Texas folks, including Kim and Lufkin. Hey, Steven's here. Great. Yes, Houston is in the house for sure. Round Rock, Texas. Hi, Donna.
It used to be its own town. Now it's just part of Austin.
All right, BCS. I went to A&M, Mary, so that speaks to me there. We're up to 72 attendees. Good morning, Jessica, representing Cedar Park, Texas. We're glad you're here too.
Jason, it looks like it's slowing down. You ready for me to go ahead and kick us off?
Absolutely. And just as a check, you can see the slides, okay?
Yes, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. My name is Amy Granberry. I'm the former legislative chair for the Association of Substance Abuse Programs, and but had to stick around for one more recovery day at the Capitol. I really wish that we were all in person together and right across the street from the Capitol, getting to go in the building. But at least we're all here today. And I know that this format's actually allowed some people that have never gotten to participate. So we are so excited to have everyone that's here for the first time joining us. And just a brief history really quick. This is our third recovery day with this group of everyone working together. And so we're really happy to be able to bring together the Texas Association of Addiction Professionals, the Association of Substance Abuse Programs, and Recovery People, so that we fully recognize all parts of the system and all parts of recovery and prevention and the pathway to that. So at this time, I'm going to ask Cynthia to share a little bit about the Association of Substance Abuse Programs, so you know who your hosts are. Cynthia?
Good morning, everyone. I'm excited that we're all here today. I know working off of Zoom is going to be a little challenging and different, but I can't see you, but I'm glad to see you this morning. We are representing, or I am the executive director of the Association of Substance Abuse Programs, and we represent the business side of the service continuum, those organizations who put together the prevention, treatment, and recovery support services across the state. We've been in existence for 28 years now and have been walking the capitals since that time, trying to fight stigma and support policies that are conducive to operating quality substance abuse services for everyone in Texas. And so I guess we go next to I'll just follow the logo pattern. Elizabeth, you want to talk about recovery people, or Jason? I'm not sure.
That would go to Elizabeth. Go ahead, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Good morning, you guys. My name is Elizabeth Henry. I'm the Peer Policy Fellow at Recovery People. And Recovery People is a statewide network that focuses in a couple of different areas. One of them is consumer access and protections. We also have a Peer to Career, which is focused on the recovery workforce and development of the recovery workforce. We also provide technical assistance and training to providers to promote and implement best practices across the state. We are peer run and peer driven. And we're happy to be here today and happy to have our third recovery day at the Capitol with TAP and ASAP.
Excellent, thank you. And now, because I have to introduce her a little bit, the incredible advocate, Sherry Layton, who represents TAP at this group, but has also done a lot of national advocacy work. Sherry, would you tell us a little bit about TAP for anyone who's not familiar?
Well, thanks, Amy. TAP is the Texas Association of Addiction Professionals, and we represent the individuals, whereas ASAP is an organization association, and Recovery People really focuses on peers and supporting those who are in recovery. TAP focuses on addiction counselors, certified prevention specialist, and as well as the peer recovery support specialist. And so we have work with work to promote and protect the interest of all of those all of those groups through their licensure and as well as through certification processes, plus also just in the interest of the overall workforce. And and then we're also involved in activities that support the workplace, so the addiction professionals workplace as well. We are an individual member association.
Excellent. Thank you, Sherry. So these are your 3 organizations that are hosting. As you can tell, we represent the full continuum and the full field in its entirety, whether you work for a facility, if you're an individual professional, those in recovery housing, the full gamut. So we're excited to be here. I want to give you a little idea of how the rest of this morning is going to go. We're going to talk to you about the legislative meetings. This is an unprecedented session. It's different for us, but it's also different for those that are in the building. And everybody's working to do this work differently than we ever have. So it's going to be challenging at some times. It'll be a little bit different than it's been in the past. You won't all get to come to the grill and update us on your appointments, but we do want to hear about them. So as we go through the agenda, we're going to be sharing some information with you to try and make your day as successful as possible. And then after we do that, we're actually going to cover some of the specific bills that you want to talk about, go over the handouts so you're familiar and comfortable with those, and just make sure that you're absolutely ready to move into those appointments. Throughout the morning, if you have any questions, if you'll post those in the chat, we'll be monitoring the chat box throughout so we can stop and answer those questions if necessary. But we do have time in the agenda for a question and answer session as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move into Legislative Meetings 101. And I want to talk about the first thing is hopefully everybody knows when their appointments are throughout the day. If not, I believe Elizabeth has a tool for us that shows where those appointments are, has the links, all of those things. I can say personally for the appointments I made, it's been a little more challenging even than usual to get some of those appointments made, but we're trying to cover as many people in the building in one day as possible. If you were part of making those appointments, you know that most of them are going to be with staff rather than the elected officials. And I want to start with that because sometimes people feel like if you're talking with staff, it's not as important as talking to elected officials, but honestly, it's more important because the staff are who prepare the elected official with all the information. They're who do the research. They're the ones that put everything together. So those staff need to be your best friends. And they can make things happen for you. So please, please don't be offended for that. The other thing that surprises people, especially if it's their first time, is that some of these appointments are for 15 minutes. And I have one that's booked for an hour, and I was shocked when they sent me an hour-long appointment because 15 to 30 minutes is a really long time at this point in the legislative session. So we want to practice being very concise, getting our point across very quickly, and covering just a few main things because we can always come back. And the more things that we leave to come back for gives us a reason to call that office again. So for those of you that are hosting the appointments, I'm going to encourage you to be very, very mindful of the time and monitor that throughout the appointment so that we keep things on schedule out of respect for the legislators' time. Honestly, I haven't looked at the calendar today, but I know there's a couple of important hearings today. So there's going to be people in and out and moving around through that. So I think that's important. I think the other really important thing is to remember that this is completely a nonpartisan day. Doesn't matter who elected them, once they're there, they serve Texas. And the majority of them feel that way. I think the other thing that surprises people is where some of the biggest support comes from. Chairman Price has been a huge supporter of ours, and he does run on a Republican ticket. So don't worry about how they got there. They're there now to serve Texas, and they're there to serve their constituents, and we all serve their constituents. The most important thing is to make sure they understand that you're the expert in their field and that you work in their district, and so you serve their people. That's what really matters to them. I think the next thing I'm supposed to cover is you're not telling your story. We're here as a group
Really
today.
Amy, that's actually Elizabeth.
That's Elizabeth. Okay, that's Elizabeth. Did I cover all of my points? I believe I have. Then I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. So I wanted to hit on this kind of briefly. A lot of us that work in this industry are either people in recovery or affected family members of people in recovery. And if we don't fall into one of those two categories, then we are really passionate about bringing these resources in the substance use community and making them be effective and quality. So we all have a story to tell. And basically, like was mentioned before, being mindful of the staff and legislators' time that we have, they have very limited bandwidth at this time of session. And so it's really important when you do your introduction or when you want to get the point across to your legislator or staff member of who you are. This is what was recommended to me as a best practice, and this has worked very well this whole session. My name is Elizabeth Henry. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and I'm the Peer Policy Fellow for Recovery People. The end. That's it. That's all there is to say. That tells them that you know what you're talking about because of where you work or what you do, or you know what you're talking about because you've lived it. And that's really all they need to know. Most of the time when we're speaking with legislators and their staff, they are not part of the active recovery community. More often than not, they are not. So we have our own lingo in recovery and our own, acronyms and all of these things that we use. And to walk up to someone who knows nothing or very little about how the recovery community operates and say, my name is Elizabeth and I'm a grateful alcoholic, they're going to kind of wonder why you're grateful, right? That you're an alcoholic. They may not understand that. So just letting them know that you're a person in recovery and this is what you do and this is why you're talking to them. 1 or 2 sentences, super brief. If you want to get into more of your story and background with them, that's a separate appointment. They need to know that that's what you want to talk with them about and how you're going to use that. So this appointment is really focused on the bills and the legislation, not so much on your story that drives the passion of why you're here. That again is once you start building that relationship and they know you are the expert in what you're talking about, you can start to disclose bits and pieces on more of a strength-based kind of way. So, it's not meant to be offensive or to diminish all the work that people in recovery have done to get to this point, but it's just really to make sure that we meet our legislators where they are, not where we think they should be. And that really helps to build a pretty solid relationship with them, and they know that they can depend on you at that point, and they understand what you're talking about. So that's really all I wanted to mention about that. And I think I'll kick it over to Sherry.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And Amy talked about and just the timing of this piece and being that we have a very limited amount of time. And so in that, there's a number of things that we just simply don't have time to talk about today. And our hope is that this is today, if this is a first time opportunity for you as an advocate, you will begin to start to feel comfortable and understand how you can reach back out. And we'll talk about some of those things a little bit later. But today we're focused on some particular things, and those are the legislative bills that we have that we'll go over in detail with you a little bit later in this session. And so we're here today to talk about the bills. So that puts a few things kind of on a back burner. And one of those starting off is simply our organizations. I will introduce myself. I will say that I work for La Hacienda Treatment Center, and then I may say that that's a private residential treatment facility, but that's it. We just don't have time to get into a lot of description of our organization or our services. Now, there's some things that we can weave in as we're talking about various bills and how our experiences support the need for those bills. But in our introductions, especially, we're simply there to get a starting point and to carry forward from that. So please today focus on the bills and not your organizations. Then we will give you some ideas about how to highlight your organization later on this morning. Also, there's some specific issues that have been asked about that this group has not prioritized in our messages today. Some people have said, why aren't we talking about legislative bills or various other kinds of hot topics, so to speak? And this group, this coalition, ASAP Recovery People and TAP, that comes together to put on ABCs of Advocacy and Recovery Day at the Texas Capitol, we are one of several coalitions that focus on these various topics. And so there is a group that focuses on prevention. There's a group that focuses on criminal justice. There's a group that focuses on harm reduction. There's a group that focuses on recovery organizations. And so we and we collaborate with all those different groups. And so we kind of have to talk and say, okay, you have enough bandwidth for this, you have enough bandwidth for this, and we have to spread that stuff out because no single organization or no single grouping like this one can cover everything. So today, a piece of that timing is of the bills that we're going to give you information about. We're going to ask you just to pull 3 or 4 out of that list to cover in your appointment today. Again, it's about timing and keeping it focused. But specifically, there's about 15 marijuana bills that are floating around out there, and they range from straight up legalization for recreational marijuana to very, very limited additions to the already medical marijuana pieces that we have in place in Texas. So it's a very broad range, trying to meet consensus with a group of membership that's this large as our 3 groups on identifying exactly where do we want to land in the marijuana message is just not something that we're able to do. And so, there's a little thing going on in the chat box here that caught my attention. I'm sorry. So that marijuana was something that we had to decide that we weren't going to include today. So there's also some criminal justice initiatives that we are really relying on the Criminal Justice Coalition to talk about. The Prevention Coalition has really identified talking about the marijuana bills. So we as organizations support in ways that we can support those other issues. But today, for our purposes for Recovery Day at the Capitol, we are focused on a particular set of bills that we'll get into specifically in a little bit. One of the things today in talking with your legislator or their staff member is we want to make the message relevant to the audience. And so the person that you're talking about, we want you to take a few minutes before your appointment, and we'll show you how to do that in a little bit, but to look at what committee assignments do they have. And that will help you to maybe identify what bills you want to highlight if there's something that really speaks to something that they prioritize. And so you have legislators that are on the Public Health Committee that in the House, you have legislators who are on the Senate Health and Human Services Committee, you have ones that are on Appropriations Committee. And so, those are key people that are going to be seeing in committee the bills that we're talking about. But you also may have someone who is on a criminal justice committee or a border issues committee. And so you may want to share a little bit more about how things fall into place. So, the number of folks that you interact with in your recovery organization or in your treatment organization that have criminal justice involvement, how we know that once people are established in successful recovery, they don't continue to be involved with the criminal justice system. How can you tailor your message to some of those things that are relevant to this this particular official that you're meeting with them or their staff member? Also, there's a difference between Senate bills and House bills, and you will have meetings today with senator offices, and then you may possibly have meetings today with House offices. And ideally, we would focus on Senate bills. They're identified as SB. We would focus on Senate bills when talking in the Senate offices, and House bills when talking in the House offices. And so we may want to highlight an issue that is in the opposite side of the Capitol, so to speak. But you need to understand the difference between Senate bills and House bills and who you're talking to, and recognize that they may say, well, there's really nothing I can do about that. So you may want to introduce that as you want them to have this awareness for when this bill comes over to the Senate, if it's a key piece that you're especially passionate about. So just recognizing the difference between an SB and an HB will help you feel a little bit more confident in your conversation, because it's always a little disarming when your Senate staff member goes, well, that's a House bill. I can't do anything about that. And you feel, oh, why am I talking about that then? So just to recognize the difference about that. And then remember the ask. You want to close the sale, so to speak, and you want to finish with an ask. And it's just simply, we're asking them to support these bills. Cynthia will talk a little bit later about appropriations in the state budget, and she'll have a very specific ask to share with you. But all of the bills that we have on our bill sheets are bills that we support, and that is the ultimate close to the conversation, is that we want to ask them for that support. If you're talking to a staff member, very rarely will they make any kind of commitment for you. So, don't feel like I've got to get a yes or no before I walk out of the room, but you definitely want to ask for their support on these particular bills. I think I'm going to pass that back to Elizabeth.
Actually, I'm going to take it, Sherry. We've got a few minor technical difficulties that Jason and Elizabeth are working on.
Okay.
So I wanted to take a moment. We're ahead of schedule. We put all the fast talking people at the beginning. So I wanted to take a moment and go ahead and open it up for some questions on what we've covered so far. If anybody has questions, put them in the chat box and we will answer them. So far, we've talked about timing, who's important. We're going to cover, those committee assignments, bill assignments. So if you have any general questions or anything we could answer for you, we're going to take just a few minutes to do questions and answers right now. I know there's over 100 people online already, so I'm sure somebody has a question. There is nothing popping up. Okay. Does everyone get assigned a visit? So Lisa, if you can put in the chat what district you are in, we can make sure that you've been assigned to a visit, because yes, what Sherry did an amazing job of splitting everyone up to the various districts that they live in or work in based on the information that we had. And so we can let you know on that. Okay, now we're getting some
Amy,
questions.
Can I come
Please
back?
jump in, Sherry.
We have appointments are scheduled, and they were scheduled by the Senate district lead. So appointments are scheduled with most senators. There are some representative appointments. Individuals were responsible for those. We communicated that responsibility. Not everybody was able to get those appointments done. As Amy mentioned, this has been a very challenging year, a little bit out of the ordinary. And so if we have a, so you may have appointments, most likely you will have an appointment with your senator. You may have appointments with your representative. But we will go over what that schedule looks like a little bit later this morning.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the next question is, if we're leading the meeting, is it appropriate to ask the person we're meeting with to introduce themselves to the group? Absolutely. If you're leading the meeting, you're going to be that facilitator. So you're going to want to make sure that introductions are done all the way around. And I know for one of my meetings, we're only meeting with the healthcare person for that office. For the other one, there's a chance our elected official will be on. So you would always start with the elected official and then move to staff, just out of a point of respect for that. The next question is, what is the Medicaid billable daily rate for inpatient SUD treatment? It's been a while since I've worked with billing. I really don't remember what that rate is, but I believe it matches the state rate or is slightly under the state rate. And it's been a little while since I've done billing. Julie Pittman, so happy to see you on here. We need to catch up. Says mine's more of an issue. I was only told to block the morning, then got a 2:30 appointment with a senator. Not a problem. There should be other people in that Senate appointment. We grouped all of the senators together, and I'm sure we can make a time for you to catch back up with that senator at a later time. Okay. Quick tips for first-time advocators. I'm sure. Sherry, if you want to share some tips, and then we can move on to Cynthia, and then I will follow that one up. Let's spend some time on this question.
Well, Jacqueline, I think first-time advocators, first of all, welcome. We are so excited that you were here, and I know there's a good number of first-time folks, and so we're always happy, and we really do want you to feel equipped. The thing I want to remind each of us is that we are the expert in what we do and how we do it, and we have knowledge that these folks in these offices don't even begin to have in terms of the problem areas. And so I just want to encourage you to be confident in the fact that you do know what you're talking about, okay? And when we go through the bills, we're going to ask you to pick 3, maybe 4 that are important to you, that you feel like that you have something to say about those, that you have an example to illustrate that need perhaps. And so, don't feel like you have to come in with this very starch kind of presentation. It can be very conversational and bringing in your experience and your point of view on these things. And so also but you want to come in, you want to do a brief introduction for yourself, and they're expecting you to talk about bills, and they're expecting you to ask them to support some things. And so you're going to have 3 pages. They're divided into prevention, treatment, and recovery topics, and you're going to be able to share those with them via email or dropping into the chat box in your Zoom meeting. And so you'll be able to go through those with them, and then just to point their attention to a particular bill, and there's going to be talking points listed there for you. I really encourage you to spend some time looking through those, maybe perhaps making a couple of notes for yourself, because it can be nerve-wracking to do this for the first time. It can be nerve-wracking to do this for the 10th or 12th time, So just give yourself a little bit of preparation time. And most of the folks that you're going to meet with are going to be, they're generally pretty young. This is oftentimes a first job out of college for people. You will find chief of staffs and those kinds of things that are a little bit older. But you may be surprised at how much more life experience that you have than some of the people that you'll be talking to. So, and if this is your first time and you're going to be alone in your visit with your representative, you shouldn't be alone with the visit in a senator. If you're going to be alone in a visit with a representative, you can, we reach out and some of us can maybe try to jump in with you if the timing allows for that. But, and it's okay to say, this is my first time to talk with a legislator or to talk with a staff member. So You don't have, you're the expert in what you know, but you don't have to present yourself as an expert in advocacy. So try to be as conversational as you can. Amy, were you gonna?
Cynthia, any tips you want to add on that? You're muted, Cynthia.
I've been on Zoom forever, and that's something that I continue to do. I always say my most brilliant things on mute. But so one of the things, Sherry covered a lot of some of the first surprises I had when I went to advocate. One is that the person that you will be talking to is usually young, not always, but often they are, and they are the experts in how the process works, and they advise the legislator. So being able, as Amy mentioned, to make friends and establish a relationship with that individual will take you a long way in what I hope will be a long advocacy career for you. The other thing that I just wanted to mention is the most important thing that you are doing when you sit down and talk to a representative is that you are, one, a constituent, and two, you are telling that representative senator that there are people back in the district who care about the issue of services and services for substance use disorder and recovery from substance use disorder. This is not usually a thing they hear a lot about from constituents, and therefore, they don't necessarily think it's of concern to their constituents. And you're here to kind of indicate that this is an issue, that there are constituents that care, and that you will be there to provide any information if this is a new area for them. So regardless of whether you can, talk through all the technicalities of the bill, or, don't feel very confident about that piece of it, you can be confident that your main goal is to just let them know that you care and that you're there to provide them information as an expert. And that's really it. There's no kind of, right or wrong way in these first meetings. You just need to introduce yourself, let them know you care about this issue. And these are kind of the general areas: prevention, intervention, treatment, funding, whatever it is that you have the most passion for, or the three bills that appear to be the ones that you would support. So, and then follow up. That's the other thing. Once you've met that individual, shoot them an email, tell them thank you, share something about, your services in their district, the services that you offer that take care of their constituents. And you put your newsletter, if you're with an organization, if you have a newsletter, or you have some kind of mechanism to kind of continue that contact, which opens, a window there to continue to educate them on this issue. And like Sherry said, some of them are much more familiar with the issue because they serve on, say, the Public Health Committee or the Health and Human Services Committee, who get our bills. But other offices who are like working with oil and gas don't. But it is a constituent issue and they need to know about it. So
wonderful. Thank you, Cynthia. So
Amy, there's several questions about appointments. Can I hit those?
Actually, we have figured out the problem with our technical difficulties. We have a number of friends who are not able to join us yet. And so we are going to continue to move with the flow like we have all learned to do over the last year. And we are going to stop this meeting, send out the link to the larger Zoom room, and we're going to regroup in about 5 minutes. Elizabeth is going to be sending me all the questions that we haven't gotten to, so that we will be able to cover those when we regroup in about 5 minutes. And Jason and Elizabeth are sending out that link right now. So if everyone will in just a second log off, check your email, and rejoin us on the larger Zoom group, where you will be getting that link in just a few seconds, and we will see you all in that room. Thank you for your patience. Yes, and we will go through the bills and finish the entire agenda when we get into the other room with the rest of our friends.
Are we all getting off, or is this?
Yeah, we all have.
We're gonna have to. It has to be a completely different room. I apologize.
Are we going to get separate access?
Are you going to send a panelist link?
I'll work on that. Yeah, and regardless, I'll be looking for you so I can promote you.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. See you in a minute.
Thanks.
Lori's just coming on. She doesn't know what we're doing. Lori.